And I've been thinking, what do I charge for a Zoom session? And my first reaction was that a Zoom session it's about a quarter of a day. So if I'm charging a grand a day, I should charge about 250 quid for a Zoom session. And then I thought, but actually, it's more than a quarter of a day, because there's a certain amount of work involved in preparing before the hour and then delivering it. It's quite high energy. I mean, you're putting several hours of energy into 1 hour, I think. You don't get any breaks while you sit and watch them do an activity for an hour like you do on a training day. So it's quite high energy. And then afterwards, you have to sort of send them a few handouts and things. So I kind of think an hour of Zoom is really an hour and a half or 2 hours of work. So I decided to charge them 350 an hour. And I thought that was probably the most that would be sustainable. If you've got, say, 10 people on a Zoom call, that's 35 quid each for an hour. I think a company would be happy to pay that. So I started charging 350 an hour. And what I found is that everybody has said yes. One person went, that's quite a high hourly rate. And I said, well, yeah, but it's 2 hours work really. And they went, yeah, I suppose. So I've not lost anything on price yet. And that's been making me think, should I charge more? And as you know, I've asked the question of various people, and they've all said that they charge about £1,000 or a little bit more than that per hour. So I thought, right, I'm going to do this spreadsheet and I'm going to see what happens if I do some numbers. So I said, imagine if you charged 250 an hour, you would sell 100%. If you had 100 inquiries, you would sell all 100.
Yep.
And I reckon if I'm charging 350, I mean, I haven't lost any yet, but I guess there'll be 10% who won't pay it, I guess. And I thought at the other end of the scale, I think 2,000 is absolutely, that would be zero. And I thought, let's just put in a tailing off between 250 and £2,000 for 1 hour of Zoom.
Yep.
And so I sort of thought, as I go up 350 to 450, you'd probably lose 10%, and 450. And then I thought, as I get to sort of the difference between 850 and 950, I just don't think customers are going to even notice that really.
Yeah.
So I've made a minimal drop off here. I increased the drop off a bit around 1,000 because I thought going from 950 to 1050, I might lose a few more. And then similarly, when you go from sort of 1650 to 1750, if they're going to pay 1650, they're going to pay 1750, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I thought really small drop off. So I just made this curve, and it's a fairly straight line dropping off curve, right? I've done more of a curve in a minute. But this is pretty much just straight line down. So then I've just worked out the turnover. I've just multiplied that you sell all 100. And this is not your annual income or anything. This is just from every 100 inquiries.
Yep.
So for 100 inquiries, if you sell all 100 at 250, then you're going to make 25 grand. If you sell half of them at 1250, you're going to make 62 grand. And that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can see, and here we're only selling 10% at 90. So we're just going to sell 10 at 1950. We're going to make 19 grand. So that's the turnover. And I plotted that as a curve, and it's the blue line.
Yep.
And you can see that is telling me I should charge 1250 to maximize my income. I should charge £1,250 for one Zoom hour. 50% of people are going to tell me it's too expensive. And that's going to feel unpleasant and scary. I'm going to be thinking, oh my God, half the customers are telling me I'm too expensive. But I make all this money on the other half. So I'm making 62 grand. And, that could be in a year, just doing, and I'm only doing 50 hours of Zoom. I'm doing 1 hour a week.
Yep.
And I'm making 62 grand, but I could do 2 hours a week, of course, if I can get 200 inquiries coming in, and I could make 112 grand. So interestingly, the maximum turnover point is the point where half of my customers can't afford me. Half of my potential customers and inquiries can't afford me. And that's what I always get when I do this analysis, 50%. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, then I thought, what about costs? Because, imagine you were selling something for, let's say, 750 and your costs were 700. You're only making 50 quid. If you put your price up to 850, you're now making £150 profit, aren't you? Instead of 50, you trebled your profit. So it'd be a complete no-brainer to put your price up. So when
Yep.
you bring in costs, it tends to tell you to push your price up higher. So I was thinking, do I have any costs as a trainer? You know, why would I not just want to maximize my income? But I do have a cost, which is my time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so for example, I'd like to be on the beach, not doing a Zoom call. And if the beach was really valuable, if the beach was worth, you know, £1,000 an hour to me, I wouldn't do any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd be thinking, well, here I'm only making 150 quid if I take off my beach loss time, you know, and here I'd be making 250. So it would really be worth putting my price up. So I thought, what is my time worth? And the answer is, I don't really know. I think that there are two costs of my time. And one of them is the things I'd rather be doing, like going to the beach. And as we get older and our families get older, we want to spend time with our families, don't we?
Yeah.
But the other thing is the opportunity cost. I could be spending my time making videos to sell on Udemy,
Yeah.
or designing new products or selling or something. So, you know, I don't want to spend my whole time doing loads and loads of Zoom calls for 250 quid. So I thought maybe my time's worth £80 an hour, but
Yeah.
maybe my time's worth £300 an hour. You know, I'm not really sure. So I thought I'll do it for both.
Yeah,
I don't know.
and that's reasonable. I mean, I think for a contractor's rate, I charge €70 an hour.
Yeah.
For an
So I
hour of
think,
my
yeah,
so like I always think of it as you're at least €1, at least £1 a minute. You know, is your time.
I think so. And of course, you know, people on minimum wage are earning 15 quid an hour, and that's just crazy, really, and scandalous. But in our sort of world, £1 a minute is kind of going rate. And that's what you could sell yourself. But I think your opportunity cost is worth more than that. And plus, you know, we have finite lives, want to spend time with the kids. Maybe it's that much. So I thought minimum and maximum of those numbers. I don't know. I just made them up. But you can see when I take off 80 quid an hour, my profit margin is reduced quite a bit, because here, you know, I'm doing 100 Zoom hours for 25 grand, but they're costing me, you know, 800. So I've taken 800. They're costing me 8,000, aren't they? 100 times 80. So I've taken 8,000 off the 25,000. I'm only making 17,000.
Yeah.
And obviously, as I go up here, I'm doing lower hours. I'm taking off smaller amounts. By the time I get to this one, I'm only losing 10 hours at 80 quid. I'm only losing 800 quid. So, you know, I'm getting nearly all the profit, because this is so much more time effective. So it's favoring this end. But nevertheless, you can see the sweet spot is still £12.50. And even if I put my hourly rate up to £300 an hour, it's still telling me to charge £12.50. Although actually the curve is pretty level at the top. And for the sake of, you know, what is that, 250 quid, I might as well put my price up to £13.50 and do 5 hours less. And there is an argument to say to go up to here and charge £14.50 and only do 40 instead of 50 hours, because I'm only earning, you know, 1,500 quid less.
Yeah.
So, but roughly it's telling me to charge £12.50. If anything more, as soon as you start to bring in costs, it says you should charge more, definitely not less. So this first model told me that I should be charging £12.50 an hour for Zoom instead of £3.50. And I'm just thinking, whoa. Yeah. And of course, that number is exactly what all my colleagues are telling me that they charge. And yes, half of my customers are going to tell me goodbye, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So anyway, then I thought, what if I've been a bit optimistic about how many people are going to pay this? You know, do I really know that 75% of my customers will pay £5.50? So I thought, what if I go to a more pessimistic world? And this next one will be a bit quicker than the first one. Now we understand it. Yep. So I thought, you know, what if only 70% will pay £5.50? And what if by the time I get to £7.50, I'm only half my customer will pay it? So on the one before, half my customers will pay £12.50. But what if the halfway point is only £7.50? You know, what should I do then? And I think it is possible, because, you know, maybe my friends do training courses for big blue chip companies who pay huge amounts of money for training. And a lot of my stuff is done for small local companies and things. Maybe they won't pay the amount. So I made it drop off much quicker to start with. So it plummets down and then it sort of comes out a bit more level after that, you know, classic sort of demand curve, really.
Yeah.
So I've said, I've still started with 90% here, but then I've gone 80, 70, 60, really dropping off fast.
Yeah.
And then by the time I get to £1,000, only 30% will pay 1,000.
Mm.
And then after that, I've got it dropping off more slowly, because I just don't think there's much difference between 1450 and 1550, is there really? And by the time you get down here, you're losing very little as you put the price up. And I've said just one person in 100 will pay 1950, where before I had 10 out of 100. But this time only one person's going to pay that. So again, I've worked out my turnover, and you can see my maximum turnover now, my point of maximum turnover is at 650.
Yeah.
So at the very least, with this cautious model, I should be charging 650, not 350. And then what if I bring in my time calculation as well? Now, if I just charge myself out at 80 quid an hour, it's still telling me 650, possibly 750. Because look, you know, there's only £1,000 difference there for significantly less work. You know, because I'm charging 750, not 650. And you could even push it a bit and go up to 8. It's not making that much difference. Can you see I've got 30, 30, 29.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of thinking, you know, for the sake of a few thousand, why not go to 29 grand instead of 34 and only do 30 days of work instead of 60? I could halve the amount of work and make 29 instead of 34.
Mm-hmm.
And if 29 is not enough, just do a bit more selling.
Yeah.
You know, because if you had twice the number of inquiries, because this is just from 100 inquiries, I'm only going to sell 30. If I had twice the number of inquiries, I could make 60k.
Yeah.
So, you know, in a way, I'm a mug. I'm working twice as hard for only slightly more here. I'd rather put the effort into selling. So I kind of feel there's a sweet spot here. And this is my orange curve here, because the blue one is with no cost. The orange one is with some cost. And you can see, you know, go to about there before it starts to really drop off. And then if I value my time a bit more, if I start thinking, you know, I would pay 300 quid to have a day. Well, actually, this is an hour, remember?
Hour, yeah.
But remember that if I book an hour, that's a morning gone of my life. I could have gone down to the beach this morning, but I didn't, because I had a Zoom hour in the middle of it. So, you know, would you value a morning of your time at 300 quid? And bearing in mind, you know, when you get to 55, you've only got 800 weekends left. You know, that's a statistic, isn't it? When you're 55, you've only got 800 weekends left. And I think a day is worth 300 quid. I think a weekend's worth 600, you know. So if you start to value the opportunity cost of your time, and plus you could make videos, and they could be really lucrative and things. So you could bring money into it too. So if you put 300 quid in, then the sweet spot is 950.
Yeah.
And the curve is very level across the top. So really, it's not really 950, because look at this, the 22, 750, 22, 20, I think it looks more like 21.
Yeah, it's very flat.
Very flat. Why would you not? And you can see if you push your price up to 1150, you're only doing 25 days. So instead of doing 60 days, or maybe 30, if you just do 25 days, you can still make 21 as opposed to, you know, 22. And at the moment, you know, if I charge 650, I'm making 21. I could make the same money here on only 25 days as I'm doing on 60 days at charging 650. So what would you rather do, 60 days at 650 or you know, 25 days at 1150, because you make the same money.
Yeah.
So, you know, so yet again, really, this is saying at the very least, you've got to charge 650. And really, if you start to value your time, and if you look at the shape of the curve, you ought to go to 950 or possibly even 1150 if you value your time a bit more highly. So even my really pessimistic model is telling me that we should be charging 1150, I think. But I'm a coward. So what I'm going to do, and this is a promise, I'm going to put my price up to 850 from now. I'm going to go from 350 to 850. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to see what happens. And we shall see. And I will probably sell between, you know, my first model I had, hang on a minute, I can't click it. My first model, I would sell 68%, but but I think, this model may be more accurate. I may only sell 40%. I want to be at about 50 or 40% of my inquiries can't afford me. And you've got to hold the line on that. And the first 2 or 3 may all say, no, that's fine. Just keep holding the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to see what happens at 850. Now, if I don't sell anything at 850, then I'm going to have to crumble back to 650, aren't I, and see what happens. But if I sell steadily at 850, or if I get a pleasant surprise, and if I find that 70% of people are saying yes to 850, then I'm going to push my price up more, and I'm going to go up to 1200. So my second step, I'm going to go 850, and I'm going to go to 1200. And of course, the other factor is how many inquiries do you get? So if I'm getting a lot of inquiries, and suppose only 20% pay 850, my diary is still filling up.
Yeah.
And if I get to the point where my diary is filling up at 850, I'm going to put my price up to 1250. And then the only problem I will have is I'll have to go back to all those customers who I mistakenly charged 350 when I was getting started. And I'd recommend you do this, by the way. If you're getting started, I would recommend you charge 350 or 400 or 450, something like that.
Yeah.
And because you want your diary just to go woof and fill up, don't you?
Yeah.
It would just feel good. But what I'm saying is when it gets to half full, it's time to put the brakes on, because the last thing you want is your diary completely full of low paid work.
Yeah.
So build up your confidence, get your diary half full, and then double the price. And then once your diary's completely full, then you can go back to the 350s. And by the way, they won't have gone away. They'll be buying more and more because it's so cheap. They can spot a bargain.
Yeah.
So you've got to go back to the 350s and say, I'm really sorry, guys, but I'm having to put my price up because I'm turning work away. And, I don't know why. Obviously, people like me or whatever it is. I'm turning work away. And it would appear you've been getting a bargain up till now. And that's great. I have no problem with that. But unfortunately, I'd be mad to carry on doing days for you at 350 when I'm turning work away at 850. So unfortunately, I'm having to put my price up to 850. And if you can't afford it, I totally understand that. And that's fine. But that's what I got to do. And what you'll find then is that half of them will say, well, I'm not paying that, I'm leaving, and half will pay it. Yeah. And so you'll be earning more money in half the time. Yeah. And you've now got half your diary free for more work to come in at 850. So that if we're talking about half your diary, half of the half will pay the higher price.
Yes.
And you'll be earning more than you used to for the whole. And then the other half will leave. And that's okay, because it gives you a bit of headroom to carry on selling for 850.
Yeah.
And of course, the half that stay will be the ones who you like and who like you and who are great customers. And the half who leave will be the ones who are a bit of a pain anyway. So there's kind of justice in that, isn't it? The ones who don't value you can go and get something cheap and rubbish for 350 and good luck to them.
Yeah.
So
it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my plan. Fill half the diary for 350. I've done that because I'm slightly ahead of you on the conveyor belt. I'm now going to put the price up to 850 and see what happens. And I will be your canary in the coal mine, and we'll see if I drop off my perch. It'll be interesting to see, won't it?
Yeah, you're a pilot.
I am. But the spreadsheet very clearly says definitely 650, and if you value your time, 850 or 950. Or really, if you highly value your time, it's got to be 1150, hasn't it? Looking at that.
Yeah, and that's what the model says. It'd be nice once you start plotting on your actual data.
Yeah,
what actually happens.
Yeah,
because
but I have got.
Again,
sorry.
Yeah, because you're 100% at 350 just now, right? So that's
I am.
You know that.
And I have got, it's not just maths, but I have got these colleagues from 3 different directions, all telling me that they charge about 1,000 a day, and it's fine. And they don't get every job. They get about half. That's what they're telling me. They just say, take it or leave it. It's 1,000. So they're pretty much on my first spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It said that they sell about half at 1,000 to 1,250.
Mm-hmm.
But so, I've got colleagues telling me that that's where we should be aiming for. But like you, I feel uncomfortable at charging somebody £1,000 for an hour. So I'm kind of thinking I'm going to go 850 and see.
It's well worth the experiment.
It is, isn't it?
But so many self-employed people, whether they're accountants, trainers, or they charge too little.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I've got a friend who's an accountant, and he just doesn't charge enough. Yep, yep.
so yeah, I've done the maths before, and it was right on whole days. My friends all tell me it's right. So I think we've got to have faith in it and do it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to 8:50 and then 12:50, and I will report back.
No, it's going to be interesting, Chris. See,
Yeah.
none of us will have the confidence or bravery to go with high prices at the start. You know, we
No.
need to enter it at the lower end and follow the strategy that you spoke about earlier.
Yeah. And I want you to fill your diary up, half fill it,
Yeah,
but be careful not to fully fill it. And it is going to be a little bit painful to go back to people and say, sorry, guys, but you're going to have to pay more now. But, you know, it's doable. And the worst case is, you know, half of your diary will be full of badly paid work, but they're kind of customers you love. And then the other half will be well paid. And then when you get fed up with that, finally, you can start to edge the price up on those other customers. So it's
yeah.
a good problem to have, isn't it? And
Mm.
I'm delighted to find I haven't been charging enough. I mean, that's much better than suddenly discovering I'm charging too much and it's unsustainable in some way, you know, price crash in the market or something like that. So I'm delighted to discover that I'm a fool and I should have been charging more. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
But the whole Zoom is a new world. You know, it's.
Yeah.
I'm sure you weren't doing any Zoom training last year. You know?
No, I wasn't. And I had no idea that people would pay for it. And actually, I think people wouldn't have paid for it a year ago
No,
because
they wouldn't.
they thought it was no good. But now they've had to use it. They've discovered it's actually not bad. And it's not quite as good as being there with a group, but at least people can do it from all over the country from different offices. And at least you can have, if you suddenly discover you've got 50 people instead of 20, it doesn't matter. You haven't got to fit them into a room. And there's lots of advantages of Zoom. And it makes it feasible to do an hour a week rather than a whole day. So it's much less disruptive to people's work. So there's lots of reasons why customers prefer Zoom. And I think it's here to stay. And I think this conversation about Zoom pricing is not just a COVID problem. We've got to get this right forever now. I'm
Yeah.
actually, I mean, if I can be paid $8.50 an hour for Zoom, I'm not going to go on the road anymore. I'm not going to drive around the country.
No. Why would you?
I'm just going to do Zoom.
Yeah.
Other people can drive around the country if they want. Good luck to them. But I think I'm just going to do Zoom. I'm going to do 3 hours of Zoom for £1,000 an hour from my chair wearing shorts and earn 150 grand a year. And I actually think in some ways it's better for the learning process because if you do a series of Zoom hours, I think there might be better retention than if you're all in a room for a whole day, because you know you're only going to pick up on perhaps 10 or 20% of a day's worth of material, but an hour of Zoom, you're probably going to pick up on 50% of it, aren't you?
Yeah.
So I actually think we can get more information across, and as long as we can make it reasonably fun and reasonably interactive, I think Zoom can work.
I mean, with Zoom, I've been to quite a few Zoom training sessions with work, and they're generally awful just now. You know, you're going to get somebody droning on for 45 minutes through a
Yes.
PowerPoint presentation. That's what the offerings are out there just now.
Which is great news for us because we can be better than them.
Yeah, so that's the differentiator, is that we can come in with something fun, exciting,
yes,
engaging across Zoom, and
I don't think it's difficult not to be utterly boring. Do you know what I mean? And everybody else, you're right. They're so boring, aren't they? Just doing PowerPoint or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's difficult. I mean, we're not trying to be the best, but to be in the sort of, you know, top 25%, I really don't think is difficult. And I think that's highly encouraging. And if you're in the top 25%, you should be able to charge £1,000 for a Zoom hour.